भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 16, text number 31. It's a very beautiful verse. Taddarshanadhvasta samasta kilvisha swastha malanta karno bhayan munihi प्रवृद्ध भक्त्या प्रणया श्रुलोचना प्रहृष्टरोमानमदादिपूरुषम् तद्दर्शनध्वस्तसमस्तकिल्बिषा स्वस्थामलान्ता कर्णो भयान्मुनिः प्रवृद्ध भक्त्या प्रणया श्रुलोचना प्रहृष्टरोमानमदादिपूरुषम् तद्दर्शनध्वस्तसमस्तकिल्बिषा स्वस्थामलान्ता कर्णो भयान्मुनिः प्रवृद्ध भक्त्या प्रणया श्रुलोचना प्रहृष्टरोमानमदादिपूरुषम् तद्दर्शनध्वस्तसमस्तकिल्बिषा स्वस्थामलान्ता कर्णो भयान्मुनिः प्रवृद्ध भक्त्या प्रणया श्रुलोचना प्रहृष्टरोमानमदादिपूरुषम् तद्दर्शनध्वस्तसमस्तकिल्बिषा स्वस्थामलान्ता कर्णो भयान्मुनिः प्रवृद्ध भक्त्या प्रणया श्रुलोचना प्रहृष्टरोमानमदादिपूरुषम् तद्दर्शनध्वस्तसमस्तकिल्बिषा स्वस्थामलान्ता कर्णो भयान्मुनिः प्रवृद्ध भक्त्या प्रणया श्रुलोचना प्रहृष्टरोमानमदादिपूरुषम् तद्दर्शनध्वस्तसमस्तकिल्बिषा Swastha malanta karno bhayan munihi. Prabruddha bhaktya pranaya shrulochana. Prahrashtaroma namadadi purusham. Word-to-word meanings. Tad darshana, by the sight of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Dhvasta, destroyed. Samasta kilvishaha, having all sins. Swastha, healthy. Amala, and pure. Antahkaranaha, the core of whose heart. Abhyayad, approached face to face. Munihi, the king who was silent due to full mental satisfaction. Prabruddha bhaktya, with an attitude of increased devotional service. Pranaya ashrulochanaha, with tears in his eyes because of love. Prahrashtaroma, his hair standing on end due to jubilation. Anamat, offered respectful obeisances. Adi Purusham, unto the expansion of the original personality. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. As soon as Maharaj Chitraketu saw the Supreme Lord, he was cleansed of all material contamination and situated in his original Krishna consciousness. Being completely purified, he became silent and grave, and because of love for the Lord, tears fell from his eyes and his hairs stood on end. With great devotion and love, he offered his respectful obeisances unto the original personality of Godhead. Translation with repetition. As soon as Maharaj Chitraketu saw the Supreme Lord, he was cleansed of all material contamination and situated in his original Krishna consciousness, being completely purified. He became silent and grave, and because of love for the Lord, tears fell from his eyes and his hair stood on end. With great devotion and love, he offered his respectful obeisances unto the original personality of Godhead. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The word Tad Darshana Dhvasta Samasta Kilvishaha is very important in this verse. If one regularly sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the temple, one will gradually be disinfected of all material desires simply by visiting the temple and seeing the deity. When one is freed from all the results of sinful activities, one will be purified, and with a healthy mind completely cleansed, he will increasingly make progress in Krishna consciousness. Thus ends the wonderful transcendental Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vranda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So I'd like to welcome each one of you for our first anniversary celebration. Very happy that some of you could travel from Vilpitas, and there are some other devotees traveling from Canada, and I know some other places also. So that gives a lot of encouragement for us to conduct this festival and follow whatever Srila Prabhupada wants us to please Krishna and devotees. So this verse that I chose, there was no this thing that I was supposed to speak, but then we thought let's have some discussion because it's a festival, and what better thing to do than discuss Bhagavatam in association of devotees. There's a very beautiful verse which comes in the 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is one of my favorite verses, which speaks about the importance of hearing Bhagavatam in association of devotees. What happens when we hear? The verse goes like this: Tadeva ramyam ruchiram navam navam Tadeva saswan manaso mahotsavam Tadeva shokarnavasoshanam nrinam Yadottama shloka yasho anugiyate Tadeva ramyam ruchiram navam navam. Actually, the message of Bhagavatam and the description of the Lord is always ramyam and ruchiram. Ramyam is very attractive, and ruchiram is very palatable, and it is new. There is a newness. Navam navam. Tadeva ramyam ruchiram navam navam. Tadeva saswan manaso mahotsavam. This is a great festival for our mind. Of course, we can attend the festival externally by coming to the temple and participating in various services, but also this hearing of Bhagavatam is a festival for the mind. Tadeva saswan manaso mahotsavam. Mahotsavam is a great festival. Tadeva shokar navasoshanam nrinam. And our material existence, which is filled with anxieties, lamentation and grief, which is compared to an ocean, that ocean can be dried. Tadeva sokar navasoshanam nrinam. Shoshanam is to dry up. Sokarnava is the ocean of lamentation, ocean of miseries. Tadeva shokar navasoshanam nrinam. Yad uttama shloka yasho anugiyate. When we hear the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Uttama shloka is another name of the Lord. Uttama shloka is also the Lord who is glorified with choicest words. Actually, when we are engaging in devotional service, sometimes we neglect the importance of hearing, because we are all stretching ourselves, we are doing various things, services, and then in the process, somehow we think, even if I miss Bhagavatam class, it's okay. In one day, no, after all, it's not so big deal. I can catch up or things like that. But actually, the most important thing in our devotional life or spiritual life is hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam, often which people don't understand. Simple thing, half an hour, maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes. But that 20-25 minutes of hearing Bhagavatam, because it is non-different from the Lord, Idam Bhagavatam Puranam Brahma Samhitam. This is non-different from the Lord. So when we associate with the Lord's glories, activities, which is given in the form of Bhagavatam, which is another incarnation of the Lord, automatically the cleansing process happens. Even if we are engaging in any kind of devotional service, the mood, the consciousness that we will carry is something very, very different. So I chose that verse, in fact, the last time when we were having our our DT installation ceremony, that time there was a time when I was supposed to read out something which was written by, not by me, it was written by, of course, with the help of ChatGPT, by Vishnuduta Prabhu. And he gave it to me just in the last minute, because there were so many things going on and I was supposed to read, and you won't believe the mobile phone hanged. It got hanged. Nobody would have noticed. I was there in that podium and I was trying to read. Of course, this verse I spoke, Taddarshana Dhvasta Samasta Kilvishay. After that, even that screen itself got hanged. I'm trying to do, it usually doesn't happen with iPhone, but when it is supposed to happen, as the Murphy's law says, that when things can go wrong, it will go wrong. So it happened, and everything paused and stopped. But the verse still came out, because it's one of very powerful verse, very simple verse, 3-4 lines of purport, but Prabhupada says something which is so powerful. Tad darshana dhvasta samasta kilvishaha swastha malantha karno bhayan munihi prabruddha bhaktya pranayashru lochanaha prahrashta roma namadadi purusham. This is Chitraketu Maharaj when he is seeing the Lord, what is happening to him. So the darshana, when he's seeing, so there is a difference between seeing and darshan. When we are having the darshan of the Lord, it is different from just seeing another person. The darshan of the Lord is so powerful, so purifying. Dvasta samasta kilvishaha. Dvasta, it destroys. It actually completely removes all the kilvishaha, all the sinful desires that we have in our heart. Tad darshana dvasta samasta kilvishaha. Swastha. Swastha is to make healthy. Amala is to pure. Antakarana. Antakarana is something which is more powerful than mind or head or heart. Antakarana is your inner consciousness, the core of your heart, where all the sinful desires or this materialistic desires still exist. But because of the continuous darshan of the Lord, tad darshana dhvasta samasta kilvisha, swastha amala antakarana. The antakarana becomes swastha and pure. Swastha is healthy and pure. Bhayan munihi, abhyayan munihi. Abhyayan munihi is approached face to face, the king. So Prabhupada in the purport writes this one sentence: if one regularly sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the temple, one will gradually be disinfected of all material desires simply by visiting the temple and seeing the deity. It's a very powerful statement. If one regularly sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the temple, one will gradually be disinfected, infected. We are all infected with this material modes, material desires, material conditioning. Unfortunately, even though we understand the importance of spiritual life, because of the infection, and the infection is so heavy, it contaminates our mind, our desires, our heart, everything gets polluted. But by regular seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the temple, one will gradually be disinfected of all material desires simply by visiting the temple and seeing the deity. Very interestingly, actually, if we observe the different people who visit our temples, I mean, same holds true in any temple actually. How do they see the Lord? There were a few days back, there was nobody here in the temple except for the pujari, that is Kamalochan Prabhu, who was doing Gaura Arati, and I was singing. And there were about 4 or 5 visitors who came. Some Gujarati lady, maybe, two of them maybe Gujarati, and maybe their friends or relatives from somewhere. They came. It's an arati which is going on. Of course, you may not understand the lyrics, you're not able to follow, that's okay. Maybe after some time we again come back to Hare Krishna mantra. But they were constantly chattering, constantly talking. They were non-stop. They were standing, but they were just going on, something and something going on. But here, actually, this verse says something which is very powerful, very important for all of us. Even sometimes we may laugh at those people, but we are also, when not conscious of the presence of the Supreme Lord here, we talk all kinds of rubbish. We don't understand we are standing before the deities. We go on telling anything that comes to our mind. The verse says, Tad darshana dhvasta samasta kilveshaha swastha amala anta karano bhayan munihi prabruddha bhaktya pranayashru lochanaha. So when he had the darshan of the Lord, there were 2 things which is mentioned. He became silent and he became grave. Bhagavatam, or this instructions of our spiritual master or the acharyas who come in our parampara, is not meant to some kind of arouse some emotion or stimulation or something. This is practical behavior change. So if somebody is having the darshan of the Lord, these are the 2 things which should happen. He became silent and he became grave. Silent means not to talk about something which is materialistic, which is materially some gossip about someone, about this thing. No, he became silent and he became grave. Because when you have the darshan of the Supreme Lord constantly, automatically you understand the insignificant position of yours. Who am I in presence of the Lord? But how much of false ego that I carry in my heart. I think I'm the karta, I'm the doer, I'm so talented, I've got so these things, because of me these things are happening. But a person who's genuinely in his original Krishna consciousness, he becomes silent and grave. In elsewhere, where Prabhupada has quoted this verse, Prabhupada talks about the word. He's highlighting any words which are highlighted by Prabhupada in the purport has to be given extra importance. So here Prabhupada is writing, Tad Darshana Dvasta Samasta Kilvisha is very important. If one regularly sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the temple, one will gradually be disinfected of all material desires simply by visiting the temple and seeing the deity. In another place, Prabhupada uses this verse and talks about the word silent. Silent doesn't mean that one will stop talking, or one will just become a so-called this Mayavadis. When they feel, if you're realized the pot, if it is filled with water, then there'll be no sound. So they become silent. That's what they say. Silent means one will talk about Krishna and topics related to Krishna. But another thing which Prabhupada says is, silent also means the material desires that we have in our heart will cease to exist. So silent doesn't mean that, because the materialistic desires are still very strong within our heart. So there is a lot of disturbance, there is a lot of fickleness in the mind, there is a lot of unsteadiness. So a person, when he constantly has the darshan of the Lord, he becomes silent and grave. And because of love for the Lord, tears fell from his eyes. Now we are doing so many services related to DT. Sometimes we take it granted. Somehow one aarti has to be done. Fatafat jaake wahan clean karke we'll go back. Or offering has to happen. We chant some mantras and we just go back. But it is mentioned here, because of love for the Lord, tears started falling from his eyes. I don't know about you, but I have never had this feeling of tears coming out of my eyes by having the darshan of the Lord. And his hair stood on end. So these are all symptoms of a person who is actually fixed in the original consciousness. Of course, related to deity worship, in our country especially, there are a lot of misconceptions. You see, there are so many people who carry some Laddu Gopal. Mera Gopal se main kabhi alag nahi hota hu. I'm always carrying my deity wherever I am going. They carry their Gopal and they show it. But Prabhupada says, deity worship cannot be whimsical. You cannot do anything that comes to your mind based on some speculation. Deities have to be given in parampara, by the spiritual master, by the blessing of the devotees. That's how the deity manifests. We invoke some special prayers and the deity installation happens. And then somebody worships as given as per the Agama Sastra, Narada Pancharatra, and as given by Srila Prabhupada. Somebody whimsically thinks, okay, let me just also take a deity in my room, in my home, and I'll start worshipping. That is not going to work, because Prabhupada gives that example of the post box, right? If a letter has to be sent, it has to be put in the post box, and the post box, if it is a authorized, designated post box by the USPS or something, the letter will be delivered to the destination. But tomorrow, if I create a post box and paint it as close as possible, maybe perfectly to the post box, and keep it, the letter is not going to be delivered. Same holds true. Even when it comes to deity worship, especially in Kali Yuga, if it is not authorized, people take the deities and think that these deities are meant to serve my desires. Why are you serving this deity? Because the deities will fulfill all my desires. Actually, we are supposed to engage in their service to fulfill their transcendental desires. But instead of that, people think deities are, if I have to feed them, I have to do something, all my material desires will get fulfilled. That's actually a very wrong conception. And the most important thing, as this verse says, how are we having the darshan of the Lord? Though the darshan of the Lord is available, darshan itself is a very powerful word, which means it's actually philosophically seeing. I mean, the Supreme Lord is personally standing out of his great compassion in front of me. But how am I looking at him? So this is very important, and very nicely Prabhupada explains about this importance of engaging in deity services. The other thing that I wanted to, so this is one aspect of this verse, and then there were tears falling from his eyes, his hair stood on end, and with great devotion and love, he offered his respectful obeisances unto the original personality of Godhead. Two more aspects related to this deity worship. One I was just briefly talking about is called this concept where I feel I have decorated the deity very nicely. I have made such wonderful garland. Because of that, the deities are looking beautiful. Sometimes that kind of a feeling comes. But actually the deities are themselves so beautiful. Anything which is going, it is because it is going on the deity that it is looking beautiful. Of course, you can't just simply randomly wrap the deity and say, anyway, the deities are beautiful, so I just did like that. We have to be careful and attentive, but we should never forget this fact that the Lord himself is so beautiful. Malayasyeva va chandanam. So Malaya hills became famous because it's not, Chandan grew there. Because of the Chandan, Malaya hills became famous. So the Lord is so beautiful, attractive. Anything you put, anything you do, he looks more attractive. That object becomes attractive because it is coming in touch with the Lord. So the third chapter of 27th verse of Bhagavad Gita, which says, Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasaha ahankara vimudhatma kartahamiti manyate. In that purport, Prabhupada writes something very powerful. The person in material consciousness is convinced by false ego that he is the doer of everything. He does not know that the mechanism of the body is produced by material nature, which works under the supervision of the Supreme Lord. The materialistic person has no knowledge that ultimately he is under the control of Krishna. These are very powerful things. The materialistic person. So when we have the material consciousness, he doesn't know that the mechanism of the body is produced by material nature, which is working under the supervision of the Supreme Lord. So to take credit for something which really doesn't belong to us, or to think that I have done this, is something which is because of the influence of this false ego. In one village, there was one deity installation ceremony which was happening. So they had a tradition or a custom that before they install the deity in the temple, the deity has to go around the whole village. So the village was not a small village, it was a very big village. So they decided what should they do. They thought they found one donkey. And the donkey was brought, and we are carrying the Lord in wonderful vahanas, right? But those villagers, they were simple, so they thought, let's have the donkey, and they mounted the deity on the donkey, and they went around all the village, throughout the village. Every house they were going, the deity was welcomed. So they were putting some garlands, like that it was going on. Finally, everything, when the procession came to an end, after the whole village is covered, it so happened the deities, the garlands which were put on the deities were so many that few of them fell down and fell on the head of the donkey. So the donkey in his mind was thinking, after all, I'm so great, people are respecting me with this garlands. Something like that we also feel when we do right some things, we feel, oh, we've done something extraordinary. Actually, there is nothing extraordinary we can do. The extraordinary thing that has happened in our life is that we have given an opportunity to engage in devotional service under the direction of his pure devotee spiritual man. That is our great fortune. But in that, if we start taking credit that, oh, I am so clever, I am so intelligent, and because of me this thing has happened, is actually the influence of false ego. That's the second aspect. And the third aspect, there is a very beautiful verse in Bhagavatam which says, when we meet devotees, when some devotee comes, or when somebody visits our temple, or some new person comes in the temple, then how do we see, how do we interact with them? And this is the last part that we'll take and we'll close. This verse comes in the 4th canto. This is 11th chapter and 13th verse. Titikshaya karunaya maitreya chakhila jantusu samatvena cha sarvatma bhagavan samprashidati. The translation of this is, the Lord is very satisfied with his devotee when the devotee greets other people with tolerance, mercy, friendship, and equality. 4 things. If you want to memorize this in some kind of acronym, FEMT, friendliness, equality, mercy, and tolerance. So you see, the word used here is Bhagavan Samprasidati. The Lord becomes satisfied. How? Why? What? By what? Doing what? With his devotee, when the devotee greets other people with tolerance, mercy, friendship, and equality. Very powerful, these 4 words. And if you see the life of Srila Prabhupada, he was an embodiment of these virtues, these 4 things, whether it is tolerance, whether it is mercy, whether it is friendship or equality. I've shared this earlier in one of the classes, but it's always worth remembering how much tolerance Prabhupada had for giving Krishna consciousness to conditioned living entities like us. Still, he is very merciful, very tolerant, very considerate, that despite the fact that we don't have all the knowledge, we don't have all the right attitude, he is allowing us to engage in devotional service. This was the story, this was the actual thing which happened when Prabhupada visited Nairobi in Kenya. So, actually Prabhupada had called the devotees in Nairobi from Bombay, saying that there is a DT installation ceremony which is supposed to happen in Nairobi. And Prabhupada had given the date that on so and so date I'll be there, I'll be arriving with the DTs. So the devotees were all excited, but they were also busy, like we are all busy stretching and doing things. Very last moment, last second, they are running around and all. And in the process, they forgot the actual date of Prabhupada's arrival. So nobody had gone to pick up Prabhupada from the airport. So Prabhupada came and he found there is no one. Imagine. And Prabhupada, of course, is always accompanied by his secretary or one devotee at least, and he was carrying the DTs. So they took a cab and they went to the temple. They went to the temple and they rang the bell. So there was a devotee who was working. I mean, they were all African devotees, right? So local devotees. Brahmananda Prabhu was the in-charge temple president. And they were all working, and he saw Prabhupada. I mean, they have seen the pictures of Prabhupada. Prabhupada, this is the first time he's coming. So they didn't, and he saw Prabhupada, but he was in double mind, whether it is Prabhupada or somebody else who has come. So he went up running to Brahmananda Prabhu, saying that, looks like Prabhupada has come. He didn't open the door. So then Prabhupada is waiting, and then the temple president comes and he opens the door and Prabhupada comes. Still Prabhupada doesn't say anything. And then the DT installation happens, everything was done. The next day morning, Prabhupada has gone for his morning walk, came back, took bath. He was about to give class. Prabhupada usually have darshan with Govindamadi Purusham, and then he'll go and sit on the Bhagavatam Vyasasana and he'll give the class. So after his morning walk, Prabhupada wanted to take a shower, and he took a shower, and he's not finding his dress. His dress was missing. So what to do then? Prabhupada said, anyway, doesn't matter. Hearing Bhagavatam is more important than anything else. So he wore the same dress, the old dress, and he came to the class. And he closed his eyes and he sang Jai Radha Madhav, as we see always in that video, very intense. Prabhupada finished Jai Radha Madhav, opened his eyes, and he saw one of the disciples is wearing kurta and one of the disciples is wearing the dhoti. They have stolen Prabhupada's kurta and dhoti, and they were sitting in the audience. They had no idea that, they thought it can be shared. It can be shared by anybody, and they were sitting there. Prabhupada still very compassionately, very mercifully allowed these devotees to engage in devotional service. Same in Nairobi, there was another incident which is mentioned. Maybe Prabhupada stayed there for a few days. One of the days when Prabhupada had gone for morning walk and he came back, the devotee who was doing DT services, or he was cleansing the altar or something, and so, the DT installation, when it happens, we know for sure the DTs are permanently secured, and there should be a bhusparsa. It should touch the ground, which we didn't know, but we realized all of those when we were doing DT installation. In those days, in that Nairobi, whatever, because Prabhupada brought the DT and the same day the DT installation happened, DTs were not permanently secured. You can move them. So the devotee who was doing the cleansing of the altar, he thought I should cleanse. So he cleansed the DTs, and he moved the DTs from their position. And at that time somebody called him, some other service, hey, important, very important, you come. So he left the DTs over there and he ran away. And also, they didn't realize 7:30 or whatever the time the Darshanarthi happens, so the curtain opened and the DTs are facing somewhere else. They were standing like this. And then, again, Prabhupada very mercifully tolerated. The second day, actually, I missed one thing. The second day, the first day, the DT installation happened. The second day, when the altar opened, when Prabhupada came, of course, one of the things was his dresses were missing. The other thing also happened was Radharani was wearing Krishna's dress and Krishna was wearing Radharani's dress. So, how much compassion a pure devotee has to create that Krishna prema in our heart, which is stone-hearted. Very, very, lot of compassion is needed. So these 4 words which is used here, the Lord is very satisfied with his devotee when the devotee greets other people with tolerance, mercy, friendship and equality. Titikshaya, karunaya, maitreya cha khila jantushu, samatvena cha sarvatma. I should think he is also like me. I mean, I was also conditioned, I have also gone through all these material beatings. Somehow by mercy of devotees, by mercy of Prabhupada, I have been given this opportunity. I should have that kind of a feeling of equality and tolerance, mercy and friendship with others. Then the Lord becomes very satisfied with the devotee. So these are some of the points from this verse. And I again welcome you for this festival. Thank you for coming. And let's follow these instructions of Srila Prabhupada. Let's, value whatever has been given to us. Sometimes because of familiarity, we don't value this. We think what is there, the deities, not a big deal. Those kind of things come. But if we overcome that and properly understand the mood of a pure devotee, how he is allowing us to engage in devotional service of the Lord, our life will be successful. I'll stop here and see if you have any questions or comments. Mm. Yes, amazing. And the process of seeing the Lord also is mentioned. Actually, one should spend a lot of time in meditating the lotus feet of the Lord. Because the lotus feet of the Lord is compared to a thunderbolt. A thunderbolt which can destroy the mountains of sins in our heart. But usually we go and look at the face of the Lord and then, ho gaya, 2 minutes mein darshan khatam, chalo, bhago. But the more we meditate on, starting from the lotus feet, all the way going, through his calf, thigh, and then the waist, and then finally meditating on the face. That is the process which is given in Bhagavatam, especially meditating on the lotus feet. Lotus feet is so important. Samashritaya padapallava plavam, mahat padam punya yasho murare, bhavam budhir vatsa padam param padam, padam padam vipadad natesham. So samashritaya padapallava plavam, this lotus, the samashritaya padapallava plavam. So this material world which is compared to an ocean where we are drowning, the lotus feet of the Lord is compared to a boat which can help us cross this ocean of material suffering. So meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord is very, very powerful, very important. If we keep these simple things in mind when we are having darshan or when we are engaging in deity services, some of the offenses that we commit because of familiarity, because we think the Lord is not seeing. Actually, the Lord is seeing everything more than anybody else. Maybe some of us who are sitting here, looking here and there, we might not be observing what's going on in this person's mind or heart or behavior. But the Lord who's seated in our heart, we can't hide anything. He sees every single thing of ours. So those offenses we can minimize and we can engage in devotional service with more intensity, and that's what is needed. We'll stop here and go for the next program. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.